Hey there, welcome back to the Path to Zion podcast, where we are rediscovering the ancient way. Thank you for joining us today, whether you are listening along over at pathtozion.com or right here on our YouTube channel or Apple Music or anywhere for that matter. Thank you for joining into the conversation today. You can always email us at pathtozionpodcast@gmail.com. Just yesterday, we recorded an episode titled, What is a Holy Convocation? According to the word, according to the original Hebrew text, what does it mean to have a holy convocation? I want to encourage you, if you've not listened to that yet, to go back and find that brand new video that we just posted. I found it very encouraging to me to have a better understanding towards what in the Hebrew understanding alone, what is a convocation? And of course, what is a holy one, a kadosh one? Today, however, we're going to do some commentary, and we're going to get into Proverbs chapter 1. And this is going to take a little bit of time for me to set the table. And again, this is commentary now. This is things how I see them. My own personal view and vantage point, which will likely differ from yours, and that's okay. That's the beauty of opinion. But what we have titled today, as you likely already see, is 4 steps to avoid being naive. According to what the word says, a fool, a foolish one. In the Hebrew word for naive, it is a simpleton, but not in a good way, like just a simple man who minds his own business. But this naive one, according to the word that is all over the book of Proverbs, these are ones that are easily persuaded and easily enticed. They don't listen to wisdom's call. In fact, they hang out at the house of Lady Folly quite often. And when I read this morning at the end of Proverbs chapter 1, I really felt that this is the time for me to crack the door open a little bit towards some thoughts that I personally have about this age we're living in right now in the summer of 2024. Now, I have many thoughts and opinions towards the goings-on of this hour, specific to this nation. I live in the United States of America, inappropriately named. Politics and pop culture, which I propose are basically identical and inseparable entirely. These two things, politics and pop culture, alongside the ever-changing definitions of what is morality, what is appropriate behavior. I have a lot to say, but most times these days I just choose not to in any public platform. I will have, of course, conversations with individuals who are willing, but I have chosen to be very quiet. But I would say that now more than ever, people seemingly, much to my surprise, and perhaps yours as well, they're walking blindly into plans that have been formulated to control them on both sides. This nation is kind of split up into the old-fashioned red and blue, and those lines are getting blurred and not quite as defined as they used to be. I was a child of the 80s. It was much more clear then. But it would seem that today, the manipulated masses remain convinced that they themselves somehow make the decisions and that we individually choose the destiny of this country. Now, despite all the endless signs that blatantly reveals that this is simply not the case at all, the present presidential condition is case in point towards who really runs this country and how we're not really choosing as individual participants in this system that we've been handed, but we have been convinced that we are the ones who call the shots here. But this is what I'm going to propose. That the only way to make it out of this chaos that we're in, that's going to continue to mount and grow and grow and grow and increase, is to not show up and play the game. Don't show up to engage within their formulated plans. Both sides are players being played, being used, whether you are in the official game or you're a participant on the sidelines rooting for one side or the other. Somehow, some way, most people don't see this reality. And why is this? Why? And here's the question of why we're going to talk about this today according to the text in Proverbs, is because I want to run to the Bible to propose something for you to consider as you walk along your individual journey of life. If you are in this nation, or any other for that matter, it is applicable across the board, but primarily speaking to Christian evangelicals, if I could really identify who this message is for, as a caution and as a warning, as a grave concern, I believe we need to run to the Word and look at some practical warnings and considerations to be sure that we are taking steps necessary to avoid being what the Word tells us are these naive ones who are easily persuaded and easily enticed. So with that in mind, for anyone who wonders where we are in this moment, I would propose that Proverbs chapter 1, primarily starting around 24, will help us to know, will help us to see that perhaps for your consideration, this is a biblical example of a warning towards what I feel would be wise for us to consider today. Okay? Again, naive ones, as we see that it appears, I believe, in the Hebrew for the first time, I think, in Proverbs. It's seen all throughout this book. They are ones that are easily persuaded and easily enticed, and they refuse to listen to wisdom's call. And because of that, they reap the fruit of their foolishness. They rush into believing whatever they're presented. Lady Folly and all of her trappings is their source. These individuals eat the fruit of their own ways and are filled with their own counsel. So let's just pick up our Bibles and talk about Proverbs chapter 1 just a little bit. And I'm just going to go through a few, highlight these verses here, beginning in verse 20. Wisdom shouts in the streets. She lifts her voice in the square. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out, and at the entrance of the gates in the city, she utters her sayings. How long, O naive ones, will you love simplicity? Or just simple things. Scoffers delight themselves in scoffing, and fools hate knowledge. Turn to my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you. Because I called and you refused, I stretched out my hand and no one paid attention. You neglected all of my counsel and you did not want my reproof. We think wisdom is just giving us good advice, friend. Reproof, correction, is all throughout this text. So she continues in verse 26, I will even laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your dread comes. When your dread comes like a storm and your calamity comes on like a whirlwind and distress and anguish come on to you, then, this is where we're going to key in 28 through 33 where chapter 1 concludes. Then they will call on me diligently, and I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they shall not find me. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of Yahweh. They would not accept my counsel. They spurned all of my reproof. Verse 31, they shall eat of the fruit of their own way and be satiated with their own devices. For the waywardness of the naive shall kill them, and the complacency of fools shall destroy them. But he who listens to me shall live securely and shall be at ease from the dread of evil. So this is what we're going to talk about for a few minutes as we read through this text and consider, is this speaking to us today here in America, 2024? Or is this just, is this for somebody else? The foolish people. Couldn't be us. We're exempt as usual. We talked about that just the other day as well in a community post that I made. The wicked and foolish people are always the other guys, never us. But wisdom here is calling out, and one of her main criticisms is that the foolish, naive one is disinterested in receiving her reproof, her correction, her counsel. So I would say, let us be sure that this is not us today, a naive one. I see an alarming crowd running after the deception of this age with little to no thought whatsoever to pause, to sit down, quiet oneself, and consider what wisdom is saying. Headlines are considered fact for many. Reports, air quotes, define their reality. Pull up a chair to the side of the table that you've chosen to sit at and fill your plate. There is an endless offering of all this chaos and nonsense. It is endless. And of course, we live in an age where every possible outlet of media can be delivered to you from every second of your day, laying in your bed, eating breakfast, driving to work, coming home and turning on one's television, scrolling Facebook and the internet. Headlines, news briefs, videos. It's an endless offering of what Lady Folly is presenting. Many eat this with great delight. What has been delivered to them perfectly. This is a well-oiled machine by this point. It's been going for a long time, and these individuals eat their fill, wipe their mouths of folly, and stand to their feet inebriated by Lady Folly's delicacies. Thoughts, imaginations, and decisions are then based accordingly from there. If we believe the word, destruction follows for these naive ones. My encouragement is this: let us secure now that we will be men and women, households even, that will love knowledge, choose to fear Yahweh, receive His counsel and His rebuke, that wisdom is speaking. This is exactly what I posted about just yesterday. Mainstream doctrine has taught us to push rebuke and correction onto everyone else that we have somehow deemed deserving. How do we arrive at who deserves Yahweh's rebuke and wisdom's counsel? Well, the same buffet that we're talking about here. The pictures that are painted, the lines that are drawn, pick a side. You must pick a side, and brother hates brother, just like the word prophesies. Mainstream doctrine has taught us to push these things out and always make the ones who are deserving Yahweh's judgment and wrath and correction and rebuke onto someone else. It's not us, it's someone else. Seldom does it land on us individually as it should. So let's repeat this literal list again very slowly as we bring this to a very quick conclusion today, as we talk about 4 steps to avoid being naive that are found at the end of chapter 1 in the book of Proverbs. Number 1, we must love knowledge. Knowledge of what? American history? No, truth. We must seek truth and knowledge. We have been told in this modern Christian generation of experiential encounter-based living, it doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter if you know anything. It's all about the Spirit. This says we must love knowledge. Number 2, we must choose to walk in the fear of Yahweh. This, of course, we could spend an hour on talking about what is the proper biblical understanding of the fear of Yahweh. We're not in any way, of course, cowering in the corner, hiding from an angry father or an angry God. This is a reverence and a fear and an honor that is placed upon our Mighty One, that we will do what He says to do because He is great and I am not. Number 3, we must accept Father's counsel. Where is His counsel found? Just by listening to Him alone? Well, you know, the thing of the hour, and I'm not going to talk about this today beyond right here, but all these people getting these daily downloads of prophecy from God, He's giving us counsel. He's telling us who's going to win the presidency. He's telling us who's going to change in the Senate. God told me this morning. We're not talking about that now, friend. We're talking about the counsel of Yahweh Elohim. And we've got to get into our minds that we hold the Torah and the prophets in our hands. It has always been held as Yahweh's counsel by those people who are His set-apart ones. It would do us well to return to that understanding that when men stood up, as we talked about recently in the Holy Convocation discussion, when men stood to their feet and they called out, declared Yahweh's Torah that is perfect, reviving the soul, we are aware that we are receiving Father's counsel. And may I remind you, His perfect counsel. And I say this repeatedly on the program. How many things do you know in this life, friend, that are so trustworthy and perfect? Where else can you go to find a perfectly trustworthy counsel more than the Torah of Yahweh Elohim? Can you just trust the Spirit that you hear and hope that it's holy, kadosh, set-apart Spirit? Many people claim to, quote, hear what the Spirit's saying, but it's not the counsel of Yahweh. It's man's own opinion at best. And number 4, we must rightly receive every rebuke from Yahweh. We must. And in case this is not clear, this is not a list I made up now. This is in the reading of the last several chapters of Proverbs chapter 1, the last few verses of that, to give us a literal list that opposes the error, corrects the error of the naive ones. So, let me end this by asking a very blunt question that we must all individually answer ourselves. Are you living securely? Because that's how this ends. This little snippet of text here ends with, he who listens to me, wisdom, who is speaking Yahweh's words, shall live securely, shall dwell in safety. It's another way of saying that throughout the Psalms and the Proverbs. And he shall be at ease from the dread of evil. So are you living securely? Are you living at ease in the current dread of evil that is all about us at every single turn right now in this nation? I see many people in great turmoil on both sides. Both sides, it just looks a little bit different flavor depending on which side you pull for. But we have been told how to walk in discernment and in peace. Literally told now, right here. These actions within Proverbs chapter 1 alone will preserve the few that will not engage in the games of the governments of men. These will walk in the sojourning pattern of Abraham, longing for a better country that cannot be forced into the governments of men. Then and only then will any one of us have a chance to, as the word says, live securely and be at ease from the dread of evil. So friend, guard your gates today. It's time for us to awaken from our slumber and use this little bit of text that we've grabbed today out of Proverbs chapter 1 and take 4 steps to avoid being naive. You've been listening to the Path to Zion podcast. We're rediscovering the ancient way. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Amen.